I can't believe I'm doing this. I mean, what's even the point? He could just be memeing for all we know. This is TechnoBlade we're talking about, for God's sakes. He seems to promote more chaos than any sort of alternative government. Did he just call his group the Syndicate? Well, it looks like I have a video then. So this video came about while I was watching some TechnoBlade content, particularly about the Syndicate and its anarchist members. Just kind of enjoying the Syndicate's little banter about anarchism, when like a CGP Grey video I asked, but what kind of anarchism?
I don't wanna...
What memes, I hear you say. TechnoBlade is clearly against the government.
Down with the king! Down with the king!
What do you mean, what kind of anarchism?
With the king!
Well, you see, dear viewer, philosophy, in this case political ideology, does not have a single way of thinking. There are internal debates, offshoots, and subcategories, much to the frustration of modern discourse. In this case, anarchism is really no different than liberalism, socialism, or conservatism. And the more I watched Techno, I couldn't help but notice certain tendencies and actions to his character. It made me think maybe there's a little bit more thought going on here than just a wither-throwing anarchist. Now on the surface, TechnoBlade is merely a blood god that needs to appease the voices in his head, and is more or less an agent of chaos, so to speak. He could simply just be memeing. He does have a track record of saying, "Yeah, that sounds like fun," and then going on to decimate or cyberbully whatever gets in his way, either through might or superior tactics. But Techno is a learned individual. I mean, this guy quotes Art of War and knows about Greek mythology without the help of the Percy Jackson series. Truly, a scholar of our time. No doubt this man clearly has a cursory knowledge of what he is talking about. And even if he is merely just memeing and acting like a bomb-throwing anarchist for the lulz, I know for a fact someone isn't, and that someone is Wilbur Mileman Bergsoot. There's no way you just casually make a series about nations and governments without knowing at least a little bit about politics.
Disregarding of this truth is nothing short of tyranny. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men, in underline, are created equal.
Wait a minute.
I don't know the actual anarchism books, although I have been reading a little bit, because I figured I should actually, like, figure out what anarchism is about to make the role-playing stronger. So the thing I've been reading has a lot of, I think it's bakunin?
Oh, I guess he does know some stuff. Did you guys at least like my Smash Brothers reference? So just a few disclaimers before we begin. I'm obviously talking about TechnoBlade the character and not the person behind the Pigman. While art is often a reflection of one's own views, I don't think the man behind the Blood God is an actual warrior. I'm just throwing that out there. It's important to separate the man from the character, and while I know that's sometimes a little hard with Dream SMP, considering that lore and non-lore tends to kind of mishmash, I really doubt this man's gonna actually start a revolution, you know? Now I say influences and not TechnoBlade as Anarcho-X, because we largely have to focus on the philosophical side of things. A big factor of the varying forms of anarchism is actually the economy. Some focus on trade collectives, some on markets, some purely on the community, and that's just the broad strokes. And frankly, we don't have a lot of information on the economic views of TechnoBlade. Which kinda makes sense because this is Minecraft we're talking about. The server is practically a post-scarcity gift-or-barter economy. Which again, it's Minecraft. It's more focused about resources than currency. Like, I think there's some evidence that his views lean a certain way, and we'll get to that. But even then, I think TechnoBlade is more worried about the destructive powers of government than how trade and commerce should work after all governments have been crushed. Yes, hello, TechnoBlade, how should we exchange goods and services? What's your feeling on markets? Yes, and what are your views on property?
Hippity hoppity, get off my property.
And finally, don't take this video too seriously. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and be like a AAA game publisher saying that my piece of content is not political. After all, I'm ideologically profiling a Minecraft pigman who dresses like a king. Saying that would be disingenuous. On the other hand, I'm ideologically profiling a Minecraft pigman who dresses as a king. Do you know how weird that sentence is? How serious would you take that sentence if a rando started talking to you? Not only that, despite reading a lot of anarchist text to get an understanding at least a little bit deeper than Wikipedia or Reddit can offer me, I'm skipping over a lot here. Oh, and also expect heaps of sass and sarcasm. Now that we got all that out of the way, Techno is an anarchist without adjectives. Okay, I know that sounds a bit of a cop-out, but it's true. TechnoBlade's underlying mantra is, as Wilbur so eloquently put it, fuck the government, and is generally against people ruling over other people, famously saying,
Now let's be honest, most people aren't smart enough to rule themselves, frankly, but nobody's smart enough to rule other people, alright?
anarchists without adjectives first and foremost worry about eliminating coercive authority and structures, and then worrying about the details of a free society later. Basically, anarcho, I don't know, maybe I'll take up pottery. We'll figure economics out after the tyrants are dealt with, okay? Some even opting for synthesis federations where each organization freely decides on its own flavor of anarchism. Which again, it's Minecraft. In the Dream SMP server, when you're not trying to make a nation, most are okay with things just being a collection of communes. TechnoBlade has shown this by going after governments and rulers and not attacking places like Boomerville. Heck, until the nuke was brought up, the Syndicate was fine with Snowchester. But you know, maybe no one should have a nuke. Hey, Tubble, I'm just saying. Seems like a monopoly of force you got there, buddy. And there you have it. Techno is an anarchist whatever, whose main priority is to eradicate the government. Mystery solved. But what are his underlying beliefs? You can be the most neutral person in the world, and you'd still have a bias unless your life entirely consists of vibing. Let's start with what most people think of when they think of TechnoBlade's anarchism. ANCAP. ANCAP. The most memeable political ideology for the western part of the world. Anarcho-capitalism is the natural conclusion of small government libertarian, i.e., no government, but you're okay with capitalism. Everything is privatized, everything is run by contracts, and taxation is fat.
Tyranny.
Oh, and there's probably some theme in there about rugged individualism.
Oh! There's 3 of them! No, it's hitting me through the wall. No! Not even close, baby!
So, corporate oppressive hellhole or free market paradise? You decide. Now, it's actually hotly debated whether or not ANCAP is actually anarchism or not, as the anarchist movement has historically been socialistic in nature. What with the elimination of the wage system, implementation of worker democracy, and the labor theory of value. Well, ANCAPs just want the same economy, but remove the central government, include the non-aggression principle, and eliminate the monopoly of force a state will usually have. The main argument that I've heard from ANCAPs and libertarians is that modern governments implement a crony capitalism, which uses their force and coercion to pick winners and losers, and thereby have exploitation in the system. In their mind, a truly free market system without the privileges that the state gives to corporations, society would be better off. Meanwhile, a lot of anarchists who have market leanings argue that capitalism would simply collapse in a truly free market system. I'm skeptical of both positions, but for our purposes, we'll say that it's valid as it is a popular theory that this is TechnoBlade's underlying thought. And I mean, if you have a passing knowledge of politics, it's fair to assume that he is at least libertarian given all of his talks about freedom, and it seems to lean on individualist thought. In Hypixel, TechnoBlade fought against the mayor, Dante. TechnoBlade won, and as the new mayor, gives bonuses to players. Most are related to his Blood God persona and the Potato War, which was no taxes at the auction house on bizarre items. Now, anarchists in general are against forced taxations, but you'll find that ANCAPs and libertarians are the ones who shout, "Taxation is fat," the most. But aside from that, what else could there be?
Organizational thing. What's that? Is that the sellout timer? Wow.
And his real estate value has gone from $3 to $1. Oh, there's just a huge hole in his roof. Oh, and we're gonna ring the bell. Everybody subscribe to TechnoBlade.
I need material wealth either in this world or in real life, Tommy.
Take the job.
If Hypixel has taught me anything, it's that if you have a problem, the answer is slavery.
Oh no. And before you ask, yes, slavery would be okay with some ANCAPs, because under contract law, both parties agreed for that to be arranged. As you can understand, even if it is voluntary, this doesn't sit well with most people. I don't think I need to explain why. There's also his concern of property values. Most anarchists reject speculative real estate and the general property right as imposed by capitalism, meaning you own it indefinitely until you gift it, you sell it, or you die. Because dead people can't own things. Except a grave. Most anarchism tends to define the idea of private/personal property as occupancy and use of said property. They also reject land speculation, interest, and profit, to name a few. ANCAPs obviously don't reject this. He also has a bunch of villagers in his basement, which he gives jobs to, clearly as a form of getting items in exchange for emeralds. He also executes the nitwit villager because he can't get a job, and that's a yikes. And of course, in Hypixel, there's all the slavery jokes. So many slavery jokes, my god, man.
Boy, doesn't that kind of sound like, shh, I need cobblestone.
So, who knows? Maybe I'm overanalyzing jokes that are clearly supposed to be dark in its humor. And in a game like Minecraft, there's a kind of line between mechanical game efficiency and roleplay. I mean, sure, the villagers are in his basement and only him and the other syndicate members have access to them, but mechanically they're basically self-employed if they're in the actual village. And TechnoBlade didn't technically give them their jobs, and I'm not really helping their case here. But it's only to the villagers that this occurs, and the other syndicate members are more mutual and equal standing, and not under the employment of TechnoBlade. This doesn't really help the implications of the villagers they're under, but, again, how much of this is out-of-character Minecraft mid-maxing, and how much of this is an actual part of roleplay? Probably about 50-50, given the SMP's track record.
Technically, I'm leaving. What the hell is wrong with
I'm gonna follow you to your house then.
No!
There's also moments like,
Down with the 1%.
so slightly inconclusive, but I can kinda see why people call him ANCAP. That and the sellout bell.
Hit the subscribe button.
But the mechanics of Minecraft make it a little bit more ambiguous. Though, man, if you start giving out free helicopter rides, I'm gonna become very crossed. Oh, don't worry, those are only for the tyrants. And the nitwit villagers. Techno, no! And the orphans. I physically removed that child in self-defense. You gotta believe me. But as Leonardo DiCaprio put it, we need to go deeper. Right libertarians and ANCAPs didn't arise from a vacuum. Nothing does. Chances are the very thing you cling to came from influences way older than you. Even it is cherry-picked to satisfy biases. So, what anarchism was cherry-picked to satisfy right libertarians and ANCAPs bias towards a capitalist society? Why, individualist anarchism, of course. So anarchism has two main big tents. You have individualist anarchism and social anarchism. In broad terms from what I've researched, individualist anarchists tend to focus on individual freedom and one's will over external variables, while social anarchism is a collection of ideologies that focus on community and mutual aid to bring about a free society. These are more tendencies, and both have influenced each other throughout the years. I think it doesn't take a lot to see which tendency techno leans more on. Outside of the talk of violence and chaos, techno does seem to support individual autonomy and freedom in opposition to taking orders from some central authority, tyrannical or not. Though this is the dream SMP, I think it's fair to say most are tyrannical. Now, there's a few variants of underlying philosophical discussions about individualist anarchism. You got self-ownership, you got natural law, law of equal liberty, just to name a few. Though these quite don't easily fit into TechnoBlade's way of thinking and worldview. Again, this dude is mostly about taking down the government. I mean, I think the closest is self-ownership or sovereignty over the individual. It's what it sounds like on the tin. I can do what I want with my body and life, and you can't stop me. You can't tell me what to do, man! And one big through line is property is through one's own means, as seen when Tommy tries to ask Techno for some items on some occasions. And I mean, this is TechnoBlade we're talking about here. Have you seen this man farm potatoes? This man scares me.
How long have you spent here?
I haven't logged off.
Crap, I can't even get out of bed to make this recording without like 2 cups of coffee. I'm on my 2nd cup of... However, there was one word that Techno kept using that gave me pause for thought. Like, I joke about the Syndicate and its name is what made me start wondering if there's like deeper thought going on with Techno's character than what appeared. This word was both used to describe his relationship with Tommy during his exile, and was the first sentence in the Syndicate's manifesto. And that word is mutual.
We're working for our own mutual benefit right now.
He's with Tommy for their own mutual benefit, and the Syndicate is a mutual group of like-minded people fighting against mostly tyrannical governments. With this one word, coupled with his focus on individual liberty, we start to get a fuller picture of this pig man. It's time we talk about the only one, and his book club. Let's talk about the Syndicate for a second. But what is it exactly? Well, it's 5 people working together for a common goal. At first it made me think of syndicalism, anarcho-syndicalism to be precise. But it has too much of an economic basis for it to be in a Minecraft SMP. It is also interesting that Techno uses mutual in a way that prescribes a self-interested cooperation between all parties. This to me starts to sound like the ideas of Max Steiner. Egoism is a particular variation of individualist anarchist thought. Being an existentialist, Steiner came to the logical conclusion that all social and moral institutions were illegitimate. This is going to be fun. This position was so extreme that he wanted to not only abolish the state, but also society as an institution responsible for its means. This is the we live in a society. The only thing that was legitimate was one's own will and self-interest without regard for morals and others' well-beings. So what would be Steiner's alternative to society? Why, a union of egoists! The union is described as a voluntary, non-systematic association which all members of said union continually renew the support through their acts of will. The union requires all its participants to act out of self-interest. The union itself is not an authority, but is subservient to the group's will. After reading up on this, I couldn't help but start make correlations between Techno's rant about the Syndicate.
How? In what way? In what? This is a book club. This is literally a book club. Where's the institutional power? Where's the hierarchy? Do they think any group of people is a government? When you have to do a group project in school, do you form a temporary government to get it done? Do you think anarchists don't have friends in real life? Do you think they're all loners? What is this? What is this?
And notable relations with the union itself. The best part is that Steiner actually tried to use friend groups as an example of a union of egoists, which is pretty funny considering Techno's rant.
Do you think anarchists don't have friends in real life?
Now let's look at the Syndicate a little bit more closely. I think the Syndicate is a slightly more formal version of the union of egoists. We have a group of people who joined the Syndicate for their own mutual self-interest. Of course, there's TechnoBlade, someone who wants to take down all governments in the first place, so it's obvious why he's there. We have Phil's in Minecraft, who saw governments as corrupt and is the reason behind his son's death. Low-key, TechnoBlade's right-hand man. We have Nikki, who joined after losing faith in a very promising nation, betrayed badly in an oppressive regime, sees her nation destroyed like how many times? Poor girl just wants to vibe, man. And we have Ranboo, general nice guy, wants to be a mediator between everyone, and has also seen his own fair share of corruption of the government, as seen with the trial. He might also be the main character. And then there's the fifth guy who could literally be anyone. It's a goddamn mystery. It could be Michael for all I know. TechnoBlade training arc, let's go! At the end of the day, these are all people, friends who strive towards the same goal, and who TechnoBlade either has no problems with or has sympathy towards. The only thing that makes this more formal than a union of egoists is that the manifesto outlines the syndicate structure. It's almost like a contract, except there's no leader, and the members are not compelled to act against their will. Which, when you think about it, is the underlying principle of the union of egoists. Seriously, this manifesto has less rules than Fight Club. Literally, the only rule is don't reveal information about the syndicate. So, in short, snitches get stitches. Speaking about stitches, violence. So a theme of TechnoBlade's brand of anarchism, as he would put it, is violence.
It's the acts of peace.
I think it goes without saying that TechnoBlade is in the insurrectionist brand of anarchy, aka an anarchist who believes that violence against the state is morally legitimate, aka a weather-throwing anarchist.
Why isn't this spawning?
Like, I don't think this would surprise any TechnoBlade or Dream SMP fans. It's pretty blatant. Like, I would almost go as far to say that it's explicit. Though how much of this is TechnoBlade's character and possible background, and how much of this is the anarchist coming out, is a blurry line. It's speculated that Sky Wars is canon, which might mean the Potato War is canon, which might mean that...
Shh, I need cobblestone.
It could mean that TechnoBlade's background as a warrior/soldier might be influencing his views about violence. After all, we all have lives outside of politics. So I guess non-politics in this case. On the other hand, insurrectionist anarchists are heavily influenced by the works of Max Steiner. Apparently, in The Ego and Its Own, he straight up wants to overthrow the establishment, and is the main influence of affinity groups which is similar in structure to the Union and the Syndicate. It actually turns out that Steiner and those that subscribe to egoism, such as Benjamin Tucker, is quite alright with violence. This could be described as self-defense, but I've noticed that a lot of anarchist characters very much are pro-might when describing violence. One line from Techno particularly stuck out to me.
How can I sell you on a massive anarchy from which the nation never recovers and just dissolves? And then we just,
I don't think you're gonna
the
have to
world
sell me.
regresses into a dog-eat-dog world where only the strong survive and the weak live huddled in fear. How does that sound?
Seeing this kind of characterization seemed odd to me. I heard a lot of anarchists and libertarians be concerned about the monopoly of force that a state tends to have, and just general societal coercion back in the day when I would scroll through political forums of nation-states. Don't look at me like that. Well, not what the right libertarians would be against. I kinda always got a more technical pacifist vibe from anarchists. Kinda like a, if more serious, way of how Nikki views how the world should work if you saw her argument with Jack Manifold that one time in her library.
For people to come if they need a place to go. We don't have a government, Jack. We just have free beds and food.
Those under the egoistic persuasion have a different way of viewing this. After all, natural rights are spooks in their mind. The later views of Benjamin Tucker seem particularly similar to this. He states that there are only two rights, and that is the right of might and the right of contract. The general gist I get from the idea of right of might is basically you have the right to anything you have through your own power or will. Steiner himself makes a big deal about this in his book, which reading his rant kinda comes off as hippity-hoppity, get off my property. Techno definitely describes to this way of thinking. He's in a sort of contract with the Syndicate, and the rest he lets his PvP skills do the talking. It is as TechnoBlade says.
But the thing about this world, Tommy, is that the only universal language is violence.
He checks off every box to describe this line of thought. I'm almost surprised that he doesn't call things spooks.
Governments are cringe.
Oh dear. I mean, sure, Techno won't let anything get in his way of, and say it with me now,
Going to destroy the government.
And he has the might to do it. On the other hand, this dude has a tinge of honor to his character. This guy is lawful neutral after all, and to me at least, lives by a code of, look, so long as you don't stab me in the back, we're good. Sam and Techno are on the same page. Techno doesn't have any issue with Rambo.
Get out of here, Rambo. I don't have anything against you. You can get out of here. Just flee in the battle.
And Nikki went up against J-Slack, so there's probably some respect there. Which, speaking about this brings me to something a little bit more personal to this character. Oh, you thought I wasn't going to talk about this, huh? Oh no, I have to talk about this. Throughout this entire video, I've been applying a lot of thoughts of prominent anarchists and applying them to TechnoBlade. Though the influence of what you read and agreeing with them is only one part of the philosophical equation. Just because you read the ego in its own, or the conquest of bread— oh my god, that's why it's called BreadTube! I cracked the code! Just because you read some philosophical literature doesn't mean you don't have your own thoughts to build off of those works, or from your own experiences. While I can see a lot of particular strain of anarchism throughout TechnoBlade's actions, there's still a more personal reason at the heart of why this character follows Anarchy's reign. Okay, this is where we're gonna get into a bit of theory crafting, but it's theorized that TechnoBlade was a powerful soldier before the events of the Dream SMP. This could be a made-up backstory, or this could include Sky Wars, Bed Wars, anything from Hypixel, Potato War, and all that stuff being canon. Also, something about the voices in his head being the dead souls of a blood cult?
I don't know how to feel about this.
That's fun.
One.
But theoretical backstory aside, in the story of Techno was used to the ends of the government. Or a government for that matter. We can see this in Tubbo's execution, Parktopia using him as a secret weapon, and Tommy being a squatter at his base. In Tommy's exile, he joins Techno for a brief stint.
Because this guy's with me.
Eventually, Tommy betrays Techno for Tubbo, and on Doomsday leads to a delicious gut punch.
I'm a person!
If we don't, you are, Techno, and so are we. The discs. The reason the discs is because they were stolen from me. Nothing is.
Discs aren't people.
Throughout this video, I made a lot of claims that Techno's anarchism is based on mutual self-interest at best, a one-man army of violence at worst. It's all cold, very calculated, logical even though Techno's memeing half the time. And that's all still true. But I find this line of dialogue, as many others have, hold some emotional weight, and we can get to the heart of TechnoBlade as a character. Past the blood god imagery and the anarchist speeches, is a pigman that's hurt. He doesn't want to be used. He doesn't want to be betrayed by people he thought were friends. Someone that's a person.
From the start, you saw me just as the Blade. That's all I was to you, the Blade.
This is a statement I found that is echoed by other members of the Syndicate as well. Phil, Ranbu, and Nikki all at least have one line that talks about how they care far more about people and their connections with them, and not the nations they support. At the end of the day, the Syndicate is a bunch of people who feel outcasted by the system, whose mutual cooperation is against something that feels unnatural and oppressive to them. Not all of them have the same bloodlust as Techno does, of course. Ranbu and Nikki are far more passive and vibe-centered anarchists of the group, but they all have this sort of belief. People deserve fair treatment, not abuse, and no one should rule over another being. Finally, in the saddest animation of Hog Hunt, she starts the video with a line that further encapsulates this thought of TechnoBlade, and I think reflects on both him as a person and the anarchism he preaches. This is a bit of a twisted version of the golden rule.
Ideals don't work. The only thing that works in this world is that you treat others as they treat you, alright? Those that have treated me with kindness, I will repay that kindness tenfold. And those that treat me with injustice, that use me, that hunt me down, that hurt my friends, I shall repay that injustice 1,000 times over.
So from what I can see, I think Techno's brand of anarchism is influenced by an egoistic variant of individualist anarchism, and with what I will call the pig rule. Because I gotta keep these jokes going, guys, like, it's a TechnoBlade video. Look, I am 100% aware that I could just be map padding this whole thing, okay? But, knowing some of the themes at play with the Dream SMP, I couldn't fathom the idea that at least a little bit of research didn't go into TechnoBlade's philosophy, but there were just too many similarities that I could not unsee. My god, I wrote a 4,000-word essay describing the ideological thought of a pigman who says, "Heh." Well, I suppose this was fun. I spent 3 years in college for this. I suppose this means I should say something really deep and off of a quote that really makes this seem all worth it. I got it. Treat your men as you would your own beloved sons, and they will follow you into the deepest valley. Sun Tzu, Art of War. And with that, I basically made a TechnoBlade video